everybody, welcome back to the channel, and today we got a little bit different video. I'm reviewing the Dogtra Pathfinder 2. GPS collar was just released this month, and it's my first GPS collar, so I've been kind of waiting for version 2. There's a couple key features that I'll cover, and we're out here at one of our little training runs, and we'll give the collar a good rundown, overview, and look at the app, some of the functions, and kind of first impressions. Thanks for watching. I kind of been waiting for this release because of I'm an upland hunter, and this function button to me has been the key thing that was missing on the other one, because I do use tone and nick and stimulation on my traditional collars, and this one required before to use the phone or the app, which makes it a little bit clumsy, I think, in the field. So I think when I saw this feature, I kind of said, maybe it's time to go with these GPS systems. I've been wanting to get one for a while, and Dogtra looks pretty attractive. So here's the collar. You can see the nice case that they send it in, a hard case. It's not waterproof, but it's got nice foam cutouts for everything. You've got some little connectors for, I think these are extra to clip on, and maybe that's a wrench, I think, to unscrew the stimulation contacts there. A lot of guys won't run that. I probably will, because like I say, I'm an upland guy, so I do use that stimulation sometimes. The collar, it's a pretty chunky unit. This is the the full 9-mile unit. I don't know that they even have a Pathfinder 2 mini. Maybe they're going to come out with that, like they previously had a mini version for smaller dogs. I've got a short hair. He's 60 pounds. Really not a problem. You can see it as compared to my old tried and true Tritronics e-collar. It is bigger, but it's similar size. It's a little bit heavier, but it is similar size. So I think for a dog his size, 45 and up, it's really not going to be a problem. Maybe if you had a smaller dog, it might be, but you can see the control too. This is the GPS controller that connects to your phone, and your phone actually runs the application. And this basically is the radio signal between the collar and your phone. So this runs over Bluetooth to your phone, and so you avoid the cost of having an expensive control like the Garmin units, some of the other units that have the handheld units. That's where most of the cost is. So Dogtra's, I think they've done a nice job to keep the price point really attractive. I think I paid $429 retail. It came really quick, and it looks like it's pretty quality made unit. It's weather sealed. It's got rubber coverings over the charging port. It is a barrel style charger instead of USB, which I kind of think is a good thing. It comes with the charger here, and you can see the 2 barrel connector chargers, but it does have a USB adapter, so that's kind of nice. You don't have to have this wall adapter. You can plug it in your 12 volt in your car and run it that way, or at home. So let's give this thing a spin and see what it looks like on the app. Alright, let's start by turning on the GPS connector. I've already started the app on the phone. It's a Pathfinder 2 specific app. You get that beep beep beep. Now it's ready to go. The app picked it up. It gives a little voice activation to let you know it's on. Now we'll start the collar up. Here's the power button right here. Okay, so these green LED lights are blinking kind of slow like that. I think that pretty much means it's connected. I've already paired the phone and the device earlier. It's a pretty easy process. The only thing to look out for is in the app, it has a notification when you first start it to allow it to basically overlay or override other applications. So you have to choose to allow it to do that the first thing. I'm running Android. I don't know if iOS works a little bit different, but that was the one, let's say, trickiest part. But the collar is running, and let's see if we can get it on the dog and have a go at it. So this is Sawyer. He's a 3-year-old GSP, and he's about 60 pounds. So you can see these collars come along. I think some guys run them on bellies because it's a training collar too. I don't normally do that, so I'm probably going to cut this down. I hate those loops like that. But you can find these collars anywhere anyway. If you needed another one, just thread it through. It comes in standard blaze orange here. I think the secondary collars, you can choose what color bands you want, and you assign each dog to them. But it looks like a pretty good unit. You know, I'm pleased with the way it's built. So let's give her a try. Hunt him up. Come on, bud. So this is the first time he's worn this thing, and he's never worn a GPS collar, so you know that antenna whipping around, he's going to have to get used to a little bit. I've noticed he kind of seemed a little hesitant of it at first. You know, it's a little bit heavier too, and with that antenna whipping, he's just you know, he's not quite used to it yet, but we'll get her done. As an upland guy, the biggest feature that attracted me was this function button. It's programmable, basically. That was the thing they were missing from the other Pathfinder, where you had to open your phone. Or if you had the kind of the second gen, the SE edition, you could run. It was compatible with the Apple Watch, but the Pathfinder 2 is compatible both with Android watches, Galaxy 4 and up series, I believe, and iOS. So. But this function button to me was key because I use tone, pretty much tone is what I use, and I'll use nick and constant correction as well. And the reason that this button is nice is because I don't have to reach in my pocket, look at my phone, or use the watch. That takes really kind of 2 hands away from the hunt. So if I can function, or if I can operate this just like my traditional Tritronics and get the GPS features, that's kind of a win-win for me. So I still got the screen protector on here. So that was key. And essentially when you run the app on the e-collar, and I'll go over that, the last function that you chose becomes active on this button. So if you have it set on tone, that's where it is. It actually does remember that too. When you shut off the unit and turn it back on, it defaults back to that. If you had it on nick or constant, you can also do that. My only criticism so far, and maybe some of you in the comments can put down below, but when I use the tone on my traditional Tritronics, I'll use 2 beeps, 3 beeps, and that will be 2 for change of direction and 3 for recall a lot of times. And a single would be just as kind of a whoa. Now, I'm not perfectly trained like this, but on this one, I noticed I really can't do that. I can't go beep beep. It just has one tone on it, and it doesn't allow me to rapidly beep. So I don't know if that's a programming thing, a firmware thing, or maybe there's actually a way to do it and I just haven't figured it out yet. So I've only had the collar for a couple of days, so this is really the first run I've had. So here's the Pathfinder 2 application. This is loaded on an Android phone. I believe the iOS behaves exactly the same. But the interface, the first thing I noticed was how responsive. This is really kind of a low-end phone. And they previously used Google Maps for their mapping application. Now they're using a system called Mapbox, which is kind of a software API mapping system, commercial system, and I'm super impressed with how responsive it is. Even running Google Maps on this device, this is kind of a low-end, mid-grade phone. It was kind of sluggish. I was worried about, you know, how is it going to behave with this application running, and so far it's super fast. It's way better. I mean, obviously you're going to get better performance out of a higher-end phone, but you can see this, that Sawyer is the dog. He is currently it's showing him pointing for a second, so when he pauses, you can set up notifications to be sent over the phone, and it'll give you kind of an audible when he's on point. So here's the main screen, here's the map. These maps also can be downloaded. offline, and so you can run in a place with no cell service, and you'll get basically a kind of a free offline grid system. So I use Onyx also. Unfortunately, they don't share the same maps because I download a lot of offline maps because where I'm hunting is often without cell service. But you just have to duplicate it here if you want the basically if you want the satellite imagery of the ground. If you don't need that, then I think it's just going to show you, where he is in relation to you. You can also run this on iOS device, iOS watch, Apple Watch, and an Android watch, Galaxy 4 and higher, I believe, is the specs. So I haven't tried that yet. I'll probably pick up one of those as well, because that'll make it easier in the field. But if we look at the application, here's kind of your panel. I'm start, stop. I'm recording right now his first path. I can pause it, stop it. So it's going to record where he is, and you can do a playback on that. So all the navigation is down here on the bottom. Right now I'm on tools. If I go to compass, it shows basically view all, shows where he is in relationship to me. You can see I have this collar labeled as Sawyer. These typically they come in with a default like dog 1, dog 2, dog 3. It's pretty easy to rename those. Go to the e-collar function, and here's where you get essentially the programming. You can use this pad if you want on the phone for tone or nick or constant. So if I switch between nick and constant, I can also move this slider, and it has this lock function so you don't accidentally, so you can kind of hold that and it'll lock it in place. So if I set my stimulation at the level my dog is comfortable with, I think it'll keep it there. There's also pager, which is vibrate, and I don't know why they call it pager. They do. So you got nick, constant, and pager. The next area is Geo-fence. You can actually draw a Geo-fence on the map, and you can set boundaries of where you want the dog or to stay in between. And when you do that, you can actually set levels of stimulation to correct him if he goes outside of that boundary, which is pretty neat. I don't know that I'll use it, but some people, maybe if they're in a restricted area, they don't want the dog to go out, it'll kind of keep an eye on him for you. That's what the e-fence, I think that's the e-fence function actually. The other menu here is kind of your settings. It has this notification preset. So you've got some built-in ones for like upland for me. So what that does, it turns running on, so it tells you or notifies you when the dog is running, and it notifies you when he's pointing by default. Personally, I don't like the running one, so I went to custom. The coon guys and the hog hunters, they've got different kind of presets. Basically, that's all they are, is presets. If you go to custom, you can turn whichever one you want on. So right now I just have pointing, and then you can choose your tone you want it to make. So if you're running with a couple buddies and maybe you want to have a different sound than they do, you can have a push notification, vibration, and sound also on your phone. So if you've got it in your pocket, you can hear that audible and know the dog is on point. I think with the watch it's probably going to work better that way. Here you go to map settings. You can have the offline map download. So this is where you actually select from the map where you want it to store, and you can download that map, and it has a limit of 400 megabytes, which I found was a pretty big area. Might have been like I'd say 3 square miles, I would say. So kind of a little bit smaller than Onyx. I think Onyx has a 5 mile and a 10 mile, and you get different levels of quality. So this is going to be a little bit different, but I think it'll work well. There's also settings for your cellular usage, etc. You've got basically the firmware update. You can do that right over this. When I actually open up my box, it says there's a updated firmware. I hit this latest version, it automatically downloaded and put it on the collar. So the device itself was good, it was the collar that needed it. You got all your units, things like that. Here you're going to have your device list. So this is where your different collars are. If you're going to pair more than one, you're going to see them in here, and you can change these names just by, I think, just using the edit function here. Yeah, I can just change his name, enter a new one, save it, good to go. It gives you a little status, your altitude, etc. So far I haven't played around with everything, but it seems pretty well laid out. The app is, like I say, it's really responsive for, you know, kind of a cheap mid-grain phone. So you could have an old Android phone that you're not using anymore. If you just want to use that for this application, I think that would work good. Otherwise, you can use, of course, you can use your day-to-day phone. So, but the mapping is good, and so far I'm liking what I see. I just got to figure out that tone to see if I can do rapid beeps with it instead of just one. It seems to be just one beep on the tone and that's all, and that might take a little bit of training with the dog to get him used to that. So one thing about the offline maps that I forgot to talk about is you can store more than one. So the limit of each size is 400 megabytes, and that seems like it's roughly 3 square miles. I think it depends on the terrain and the detail of the satellite imagery. But if we go to map settings, offline map download, and I pick an area, let's say, and we go out, and as I zoom in, we're seeing that I exceed it. Right now it's at 7 gig. So as I zoom in, that size is getting smaller and smaller until it gets under 400 megabytes. So at this point it turns green. I can save that, and then you can kind of just store the tiles. It'll actually show you a view of every green square, very similar to Onyx Maps if you guys use that. It's the same kind of idea. So of course you can get more finite and store less data if you want. You can go out and cover bigger areas. So unfortunately you can't share them between Onyx Maps, but so you're gonna have to have 2 sets of maps if you want the terrain. I don't know that you necessarily always need that, especially if you're carrying one in your pocket already anyway, unless you're trying to see exactly where the dog might be. If he's in a draw or something like that, you'd have a better idea. But of course, over cell phone service, it's going to work as you would expect. But a lot of us are hunting area without cell phone service, so this offline map feature is critical. You just have to plan ahead a little bit. Same with Onyx, you kind of have to know where you're going to go. Download those maps when you do have service or Wi-Fi, preferably, and then go from there. So that's all I'll say about that.